And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jerzee Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You know what happened this past Saturday?
Fall arrived and Penn State won.
At Penn State, right? It was the autumnal equinox on Saturday when the hours of daylight and the hours of nighttime were exactly equal. And from now on, you'll have less and less daylight hours until the winter solstice, which is December 21st, which will be the shortest day of the year. Actually, all the days have 24 hours, but it'll be the shortest daylight day of the year. And then starting on December 22nd, you'll have a few minutes more daylight every day.
Yep.
So
A little depressing, but I am actually starting to enjoy the fall weather.
I love the fall weather. No bugs. And so they get the first freeze, no mosquitoes, no bugs, no
And the
beetles.
leaves, I think Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, the whole like Northeast becomes so beautiful this time of year.
It really is. It really is. Hey, let me tell you what we got on the agenda. I was doing some last minute editing just before we got so much is going on. I had to drop some things out. I may have to do some on the fly changes here. There's so much going on. But anyway, you ever heard of a guy named H.L Mencken?
No.
He died about 20 years ago, but he was an essayist and a journalist. And our quote of the week is going to be from him. And it's about what he believed motivation was usually behind people who espouse we need to do things to save humanity. And he had some rather cynical views on what their true motivation is when people go around, we need to do this to save humanity. You probably didn't hear Joe Biden's speech at the United Nations last week, did you?
I did not.
Well, we're going to tell you about what the worst possible job in the world is, which is to be a UN translator for Joe Biden. We're going to play a clip of what Joe Biden was saying as he was reading from a teleprompter, and I defy you to tell me what words he was speaking. We've talked about fentanyl. Well, we've talked about how one packet, the size of a little sweet and low packet of, little blue, that thing you put in your coffee, how one of those packets has enough fentanyl in it to kill 6 people.
Yep.
Well, we're going to tell you how much fentanyl Arizona has seized so far this year and how many people it can kill. We're going to tell you about a new battery plant that's going to be building batteries for electric vehicles, and we're going to tell you how much power they're going to need to power that plant and where that power is going to come from. We're going to tell you about a new program from the U.S. that if you want to enter the U.S. illegally, that you will no longer need to sneak across the U.S.-Mexico border in the middle of the night, and how you can now fly directly to the U.S. city of your choice, and you will be met by CBP, who will process you and release you into the country. Doesn't that sound like a great protocol?
Sounds great for people wanting to come to the United States illegally.
Right. And this one I have to give you credit for. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you how more and more New Jersey towns are actually banning the use of gas-powered leaf blowers for environmental reasons, but what they're doing is actually going to increase the amount of greenhouse gases being generated, and we're going to tell you why that's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to play a 2-minute clip of Poland's delegate to the United Nations Parliament, to the European Union Parliament, telling that organization why Poland neither needs nor wants the immigrants from other countries that have been flooding into Europe from Africa and the Middle East with the blessing of the European Union. And this delegate from Poland is telling the EU, you want them, you keep them, and he tells them why. Here's one close to home. Did you hear that, in Pennsylvania, there's a farm where they raised minks to make, fur coats and whatnot, but a lot of the minks were breeding females. Well, somebody released 8,000 minks, and I'm going to tell you what happened to those 8,000 minks after they got released. I'll tell you about a ruling by a federal judge in California about California's law that limits magazines in guns to no more than 10 rounds, and what his ruling will mean for the rest of the country if his ruling survives the expected appeal by the state of California. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Las Vegas, where 2 thugs picked the wrong home to try and force their way into in the middle of the night. Anyway, I think we're going to fit it all in.
That sounds like an awful lot.
I know we may have to drop some stuff out here. Anyway, so here's our quote of the week by journalist and essayist, the late H.L Mencken. And he said, and very cynical, he said, the urge to, quote, save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. What do you think about that?
Interesting perspective.
Yeah, we need to do this for climate change. And if you agree, we're going to impose all these restrictions. We need to do this to prevent the spread of COVID. And if you do, we're going to impose all these restrictions on you. Now, he said he died long before climate change and COVID ever became a thing. But think about that. Every time, somebody says we have to make these laws, we have to pass these regulations to save humanity from X. Well, why does saving humanity from X always result in is new and draconian regulations? It just seems to go that way. So maybe I'm being too cynical. Anyway, going to blow right through these. So I don't know if you've ever seen the UN. Did you notice at the UN General Assembly, almost everybody in the audience is wearing a headset?
Yes.
You know why they're wearing a headset?
For translation.
Right.
In their native language.
Right. In the UN, every time there's a speaker, there are 36 translators, and you have a little knob. You can pick the language of French, English, Spanish, Swahili, Pashto, Norwegian. You pick it, Spanish, Portuguese. So you can spin a little dial, and you can pick. And in theory, as the speaker is speaking, it is the job of these translators to translate in real time, with only like a 2-second delay as the person is speaking. Their job is to instantaneously translate what the speaker is saying into the language you have chosen. Now, picture that you are a UN translator and you were working last week when Joe Biden addressed the UN General Assembly. Now, remember, he's reading from a teleprompter. You speak English. Joe Biden is in theory speaking English. You tell me what Joe Biden was saying in this clip. Here we go. Let me back this up. Listen carefully and tell me what he said.
Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
You want to hear that one more time? You want to hear that one more time?
Yeah, let's listen to that again.
Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive.
All right. What did he just say?
I have no idea. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I honestly have no idea what he was trying to even attempt to say.
All right. One more. Here's one more chance.
Now, even as we evolve our institutions.
Something about institutions.
Yeah, but what were the first 4 words? And then he goes
Not
on.
a clue.
And then he goes on and on. Here, listen to the rest of it. There's another part in the middle here.
Drive creative new partnerships. Let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system.
Certain principles are what?
I don't know. He said, let me be clear, but he's not very clear.
Right. So can you imagine you're one of those 36 translators and you're trying to translate that into Swahili?
I can't translate that into English.
And by the way, there were several more. We don't have time, but he gave about a 6-minute speech, and that's just one of several parts of his speech. And again, he's reading from a teleprompter. And,
this is not a joke. So if Jerzee Joe, if you ever sounded like that, I'd be seriously concerned you were suffering from a stroke.
Yeah, I mean, talk about, well, it's an embarrassment, and yes, this gentleman.
Well, at first it's concerning to wonder, like, is he suffering from a stroke? Because that is one of the first signs when somebody's slurring their speech, not inebriated. I assume he's not inebriated.
No, he's not. He's not drunk, but yeah, he's slurring. By the way, do you know that you will no longer see him coming down the steps of Air Force One? Yeah. Do you know that?
Yes, because he's fallen one too many times.
Right. They now have like a back staircase. They call it the baby steps that comes out of there's like a back entrance, like a tail, like that drops down out of the tail. It's like the emergency rear exit. He now comes down the emergency rear steps. He no longer comes down the big tall ramp that goes to because the 747, which is what Air Force was, is a big tall plane, and the main entrance to a 747 is way, way, way up. Then they have a little short staircase that drops down out of the tail. That's a much shorter staircase. He no longer comes down the big presidential staircase. He comes down they call them the baby steps. And by the way, he now wears tennis shoes. He's not wearing leather shoes anymore. So that's your president. It's sad. It really is sad. All right. I don't want to dwell on those things. All right. This is a last minute ad. I was reading. Now we all know, and we talked about fentanyl about 6 months ago, and how one packet of the equivalent of one sweet and low packet has enough. If that was fentanyl, could kill 6 people. Well, so far this year in Arizona, and this is just Arizona, which is not our biggest border with Mexico. They have seized 10,000 pounds of fentanyl. And I won't bore you with the math, but if you want to do the math, there's 453,000 milligrams. By the way, only 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a fatal dose. And there's 453,600 milligrams in a pound. So in 1 pound of fentanyl, there's 226,000 fatal doses in a pound. So picture.
That is literally enough to kill every single American in the United States.
Well, actually, the 10,000 pounds is enough to kill them 6 times over, because that 10,000 pounds is 2.2 billion fatal doses. That was enough fentanyl to kill every American 6 times over.
And there's 330 million Americans approximately in the United States.
So 330 times 6, you get up to 2.2 billion. So that's how much fentanyl, and that was just what was caught, not what got through. Yeah. And that was just in Arizona. That doesn't count Texas, doesn't count California. Can you imagine?
The Border Patrol, they have their hands busy at the crossings.
And by the way, so Biden is going to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. You know how many Customs and Border Patrol agents we have?
Not enough, that's for sure.
17,000. Yeah. So if you ask me, we should have 87,000 Border Patrol agents and only 17,000.
Especially since in recent years, the IRS, I don't know about you, but I file my, everybody's been filing their taxes digitally.
Electronically, right.
Everything is electronic, nobody has to process papers anymore.
Right. No, don't go. Hey, if we need more people to answer the phones, great. But 87,000, how about we make it, how about we give half of that to the IRS, we give the other half to, if you gave half of 87,000 to Customs and Border Patrol, you would triple the size of that organization. So I think it's disgraceful that we're going to add 87,000 new employees. This is not total. This is These are additional to the IRS, and we still have the Customs and Border Patrol at 17,000. Well, as long as we're on that topic, let's talk about. And this was supposedly to relieve congestion. No, but a couple of months ago, Biden said, "Hey, you don't have to swim across the river. If you want to come into the country, you can download this app to your smartphone, and you can book an appointment to come to a official U.S. port of entry at the appointment time, and we will process you, photograph you, fingerprint you. We'll give you a notice to appear before an immigration judge, which is going to be 9 to 14 months from now, and we will release you into the United States until your hearing." And by the way, 80% of those people never show up for their hearings. But they said, that's really creating a lot of congestion at those border crossings and the Mexican border. How about we expand the app so that if you want to fly to the U.S., you don't want to walk. We talked about the Darien Gap. If you want to fly, you can just pick an airport, international airport in the U.S., and most big city airports are international airports. You can pick the airport you want to fly into, notify Customs and Border Patrol of the airport, your flight number, and the airport you're coming into, and the date and time. They will meet you as you get off that. So if you're in Caracas and you want to go to San Francisco as an illegal alien, you just book your flight to San Francisco. You enter the information into the Customs and Border Patrol app. You arrive in San Francisco as an illegal alien. Customs and Border Patrol will meet you. They'll process you. They'll greet you. They'll fingerprint you, give you your notice to appear, and say, see you in 9 months. How's that?
Yeah, could make it easier.
So when you make something easier, do you think you're going to get more of it or less of it?
They're definitely going to get more of it.
Yeah, if you had to walk on foot, if they're 1,200 miles in the Darien Gap and, go through the jungles, and take that trek on foot, maybe you'd think twice. But, oh, hell, I can jump on a plane and just, be there in 4 hours. See you then. All right. Oh, you know what I forgot to include in the no, I did. Poland. All right. I did talk about Poland, right? In the preview?
Yes, in the preview, yes.
All right. Well, so here's the delegate to but I forgot to copy this. So here's the delegate to the European Union from Poland, telling the rest of his counterparts in the European Union why if they want to admit all these illegal aliens from Africa and the Middle East and Syria, why they can keep them and why Poland doesn't want them. And let's see if I can get this play without the ad. Oh, here comes the ad, which I'm going to have to speed right through. And we're going to skip the ad. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear leftists, I'm very happy to take part in this debate about democracy in Europe. So let me give you some example of very major democracy in Poland, over 1,000 years of tradition of Polish nation. Polish nation rejected you, dear leftists, 8 times. 8 times in a row you have lost elections in Poland. So get used to it, because you're going to lose again. That's number one. Let me give you some data about Poland and Polish democracy. The lowest unemployment in European Union is Poland. The highest GDP after COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest debts in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this rubbish about the need of educated immigration, as we heard yesterday. We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all and pay for them. We don't need them. You know why? Because there's a 0 terrorist attacks in Poland. Why? Because there is no illegal migration in Poland. So don't give me this look. Don't give me these arguments about the populism, because this is a fact. This is your data from Eurostat. So we don't need your engineers. We don't need your doctors. Take them. Do not teach us. Do not teach us about democracy, because we know what the democracy is. So learn from Poland. Be like Poland. Thank you very much.
He told him.
So what'd you think of that speech?
I have to say, I didn't realize that Poland had such incredible stats.
It really is impressive. And by the way, for those who want to Google that and listen to it, the speaker is Dominic, spelled with a K, Dominik, and it's Tarczynski, Tarczynski. And producer Susan, you think you can get that link up on the website?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Dominic Tarczynski, again, Tarczynski. He's the Polish delegate to the European Union. I just thought that was a great clip, because the European Union, they're just like, why we need to take, well, they're doctors and they're engineers and we need people like that. No, he's saying Poland doesn't need them. If you want them, you keep them. All right. So we want to talk about leaf blowers.
Yeah, let's talk about leaf blowers.
All right. Now, you've heard
probably the stupidest thing that I've heard all week.
Right. And I have to thank producer Susan for this. I live in New Jersey, didn't even hear this. Now, we've all heard the phrase that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is apparently what more and more New Jersey towns are doing in an effort aimed at theoretically reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but it's actually having the opposite effect. Now, towns like Princeton, New Jersey, have been banning the use of gas-powered leaf blowers and other gas-powered lawn equipment, but only those being used by commercial landscaping companies, which have to be licensed. They really can't prevent individual homeowners from using a gas-powered leaf blowers, but they can go to any commercial business. And by the way, some of these like that in Princeton, they've got these huge campuses, and they've got office complexes, and they've got pharmaceutical companies that have literally acres and acres of lawn. So they've been passing ordinances that says if you're a commercial landscaping company, you can only use battery-powered leaf blowers. Now, if you're familiar with battery-powered leaf blowers, you know you can get about 30 minutes worth of runtime out of a single battery. Yep. And if you're a residential homeowner, that's okay, right?
Yep.
But if you're a commercial landscaping company using that equipment 8 hours a day, Are you going to
16 battery packs at least?
Right. And battery
packs to get through an 8-hour day. And
right.
most landscapers work 12-hour days.
Right. But
so
let's
assume 24 packs.
But let's assume you're only working an 8-hour day. Now those battery packs are about $50 a piece, right?
Yep.
So are you going to buy 16 battery packs for each leaf blower that you own?
No.
And most of these guys own, half a dozen leaf blowers or more.
Yeah.
Of course not. You know what you can buy for $160?
Generator.
A little generator in the back of your pickup truck. So
that runs on
gas, which is less efficient than if you have a little engine right on the leaf blower itself. So, so telling these commercial landscapers you have to use only electric leaf blowers, they're not going to buy 16 spare batteries per leaf blower. They're going to buy one small $160 Honda generator for each of their trucks. And they're going to have 2 batteries. And while they're using one, they're going to be charging the other one with the generator. And they're going to run that little Honda generator all day long. And they're going to generate more emissions from that generator than they would if they just used the gas-powered leaf blower.
Yep.
So once again, and by the way, in the scheme of thing, do you think those new regulations, even if they did work, you know how much compared to, my father used to say, comparing how significant something was, he used to call it the equivalent of a fart in a gale of wind. And when you look at all the other things that generate CO2 in this country, the amount that a gas-powered leaf blower is used by commercial landscaping companies, which, by the way, are only used, 6-7 months of the year? It's the equivalent of,
I wouldn't even, I mean, I think the big time is in the fall, but right, certainly in the spring. But, I mean, I don't even, when I mow the lawn, I don't even bother to use the leaf blower to clean up my leaf.
Occasionally they'll blow it off if they're cutting grass, they'll blow it off the sidewalk. So, yeah. But anyway, but
this wasn't just limited to commercial, and this wasn't just limited to Princeton, depending on the town. And there was a very long list of towns across New Jersey where it's either residential ban or commercial ban or a complete ban.
Right. But again, the residential guy, okay, I'll get 2 spare batteries, but it's the commercial guys.
Yeah, it's really going to hurt the commercial people.
Right. And they're the ones that are going to buy and run these generators. So again, road to hell paved with the good intentions, and it's going to have the opposite effect from what they thought they were going to accomplish. They need more engineers and fewer lawyers on these town councils. Anyway. Yeah. So you heard about the mink story, right?
I did. Very sad.
And this is another road to hell paved with good intentions. So in Pennsylvania, they had a breeding farm, and apparently animal rights activists in the middle of the night came by and cut a bunch of holes. And this was a huge thing where the animals could run free. And many of the animals were breeding females. They were not being raised to be slaughtered. Anyway, the animal rights activists cut holes in the fences surrounding this very large mink breeding farm. And between 6,000 and 8,000 minks escaped into the wild. Now, by the way, minks are not native to Pennsylvania.
Actually, they are native to Pennsylvania.
Are they really?
Yes, they are.
Okay, I didn't know that. But anyway, many are already, actually, they're saying hundreds have already been killed by cars on local roadways. And many of the rest are expected to freeze or starve to death since none of them had burrows. It's very, very late in the year. Typically, you have a burrow, when you're born in a burrow, then your mom kicks you out in the spring and you go find your burrow. Many of these minks are going to freeze to death or starve to death. So these animal rights activists are going to wind up killing thousands of minks, either by getting run over by cars, or they're going to freeze to death or starve to death.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, these minks were, quote, like you said, domesticated almost. They weren't domesticated in the sense, but they had all of their needs met, so they didn't have to fend for themselves on this farm. So, and now they're being forced to fend for themselves.
Right. Something they've never done before, because they've always been hand-fed. And anyway. All right. We're trying to blow through this in record time. So we're all familiar with, quote, high-capacity gun magazine bans, right? Yeah. Now, by the way, first of all, let's talk about the English language. The liberals like to call them high capacity. When you buy a police officer's gun, standard 9mm gun, full-size gun, the standard magazine holds between 15 and 19 rounds. That's not an extended magazine. It's just a standard number of rounds that fit in the magazine that fits in the handle of the gun. That is standard, 15 to 19 rounds. Well, liberals, I said, well, that's high capacity, so we're going to limit you to no more than 10 rounds. And a lot of states, California, Connecticut, New Jersey, some cities, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, you can only have 10 rounds. You can't have any more than 10 rounds in your gun. Well, that was challenged in California a couple of years ago, and a federal judge said, no, that's not constitutional. And it went up, got appealed, and appealed. It finally got up to appeals court, and the appeals court said, we think the judge is right, and sent it back down to be reviewed again to the same judge. That same judge, and remember, this is the second time around, came back and said, in light of the Bruen decision, which we've talked about, the Supreme Court, last spring did the Bruen decision, which forced states and cities to issue concealed carry permits. He came out with an even stronger opinion, reinforcing his first opinion, saying there's no historical justification for limiting gun magazines to 10 rounds. And he also rejected, the state argued in their brief that that a citizen doesn't need more than 10 rounds for self-defense. Well, he countered that. In his opinion, he wrote, the court rejects the state's claim that that citizens do not need more than 10 rounds. And in the footnote, not in the opinion itself, but in the footnotes to the opinion, he cited several cases where, in fact, citizens trying to defend themselves from armed invaders ran out of bullets. And he used this as evidence that the state's claim that people don't need more than 10 rounds were BS. And I'll just read you one. When 3 armed intruders carrying what looked like semi-automatic pistols broke into the home of a single woman at 3:44 a.m., she dialed 911. There was no answer. The woman, dressed in pajamas, held a phone in one hand and took up her pistol in the other and began shooting. She fired numerous shots. She had no place to carry an extra magazine and no way to reload because her left hand held the phone, which was still trying to dial 911, and she exhausted all of the bullets in her gun. And he goes on, he cites case after case after case of that where people, in fact, ran out of bullets. So he used that as proof, as documentary proof, that the states claim that people don't need more than 10, that nobody ever needs more than 10 rounds. So it's a great decision. If you want to Google it, the judge's name is Benitez, Benetez, California. I'm sorry, it's Benitez, Benitez, Judge Benitez, California Federal Court, gun. Just Google high capacity gun ban ruling, Judge Benitez.
We can also post that link on the website. And, and that was a good point with, I didn't think about, you think about the average person for self-defense, somebody breaking in your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the best case scenario, you fire off 2 rounds and that's it. But what if you miss? It's the middle of the night, it's dark.
And what if there's 3 people like that? What if there's 3 people and they're all shooting at you? What you're gonna, and it's dark, you're shooting in the dark at 3 people are shooting at you. Trust me, it's not that easy.
And the average I think the average gun owner who uses a gun for self-defense can change a magazine in less than 2 seconds.
Right, but in this case, the woman had the phone in one hand, and and what if she doesn't? If you hear somebody in your house in the middle of the night, are you going to go downstairs with a spare magazine in your pajamas? No, you're going to go downstairs with the gun in your hand. You're not going to grab a.
But limiting the magazine doesn't lessen the bullets that are capable either. I mean, I can have 10 magazines.
Right. Well, the bad guy. But the point is, so the state's argument, well, no, people can have a second magazine. Yeah, but if you wake up in the middle of the night to go downstairs, you're not going to grab 2 spare magazines. All right. Mm-hmm. That was the judge's point.
Yeah.
That there is case after case after case where homeowners have run out of bullets defending themselves against multiple armed intruders. All right. I'm going to try to get through this and get to our taxpayer relief shot. All right. Panasonic is building a brand new battery manufacturing plant in Kansas City that's going to build batteries for electric vehicles. But it's going to take but that plant, however, is estimated it's going to consume between 200 and 250 megawatts of power, depending on the time of day. Well, that plant is going to consume so much electricity that in order to provide power to that new battery plant that's going to be producing batteries for electric vehicles, the Public Utility Commission had to change its plan. They were going to decommission a coal-fired power plant that they didn't need anymore. And they said, whoop, guess what? We're going to need that coal-fired power plant. So the irony is that we're going to have a plant manufacturing batteries for electric vehicles that's going to be powered by a coal-fired power plant in Kansas. How's that for irony?
Yeah, interesting. And the other piece of that is, in order to make those batteries for those electric vehicles, they need lithium, which is very rare to find.
Right.
Although they one plant in the United States.
Right. And that's a Salton Sea, by the way, in Southern California. They found that. All right. How much time we got?
You have about 5 minutes.
All right. Well, we're going to go right to our taxpayer relief shot, and really quickly, here's why we call him taxpayer relief shot. Here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, and he'll tell you why we call them taxpayer relief shots. Here we go.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully, you'll save the taxpayers money.
All right. And this one today comes to us from Las Vegas, where two guys picked the wrong house to try to invade them in the middle of the night. It's a 70-year-old man and his 58-year-old, or 70 and his 50-year-old son. Here we go.
Two men who tried to break into a home but were shot by the homeowner could be responsible for more crimes in a Spring Valley neighborhood. This happened Wednesday morning near Desert Inn in Rainbow. One of the suspects did not survive. 8 News Now reporter Victoria Saha.
By the way, did not survive. That's euphemism for dead, wound up dead right there.
Spoke to the homeowner and some neighbors.
This neighborhood in Spring Valley is tucked away. You can see around me that it's a much older neighborhood that residents say is usually pretty quiet and safe. But on Wednesday, it was a scene of a home invasion that turned deadly.
You could hear the gunshots going off.
Those gunshots coming from a home that thieves tried to get into. Metro Lieutenant Jason Johansson says a 70-year-old man and his 50-year-old son were home.
Two males who were wearing masks and gloves and dark clothing tried to break into their residence through their back door, at which point in time the son retrieved his firearm and shot them as they tried to enter his residence.
27-year-old Trevon Powell did not survive. His accomplice ran off. About the same time, police were called.
By the way, have we ever had one of these where the accomplice hasn't run off?
Nope. I laughed when the accomplice ran off, because that's what always happens.
Yep. Bye, buddy. You're on your bye, bro. You're on your own.
I could almost predict some of these storylines before you play them.
Yeah. So here's the rest of it.
To the home, reports of a reckless driver near Tropicana and Jones, then a crash at Tropicana and Decatur. There, a man was found with a gunshot wound to his leg.
Based on the details, we automatically believed it was connected to this incident.
I went to the neighborhood Thursday to try to talk to the father and son.
You know what happened. We're okay. Go away.
Neighbor Kyle Stinnett heard there had been reports of attempted break-ins in the area recently.
I have just noticed a lot in the recent couple months, the amount of people running around, jumping over block walls, being in places they shouldn't be.
Stinnett says he agrees with the drastic decision his neighbor had to make.
The same way the guy protected his home, and I'll continue to protect it that way.
But knows it was a hard one.
Having to shoot somebody because they are coming into your house wrongfully, that's something that doesn't sit well with anybody. You don't want to ever have to be put in that position.
A position which police are considering as self-defense. Reporting in Spring Valley, Victoria Saha, 8 News Now.
Police confirm multiple break-ins in the area and are reviewing those incidents to see if the same men are responsible. And as Victoria mentioned, this was considered self-defense. Now, in Nevada, we have a stand your ground law, meaning you are allowed to use deadly force if you are not the original aggressor, if you are legally entitled to be where you are, and not involved in criminal activity when there was deadly force used.
All right. So what do you think of that one, Producer Susan?
Yeah, I think the reporter summed it up.
Yep, that was
accurately.
That was a classic. All right. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, it's this Ophelia, I believe she's a tropical storm. She's been around the sea It rained all day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, and all day today. We've had 4 days of Ophelia.
Yeah,
but I think she's finally moving off the coast.
Yeah, finally. I know everybody at Penn State game got wet. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who listen to the podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on. I hope you find things of interest and importance. Producer Susan will put some of those links up on the website. Anyway, if you want to see those materials, just go to the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jerzee, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. And if you want to send me a request, I can email you those, or a question or a topic suggestion. It's just joe@jerzeejoe.com, Jerzee, and I'll either send you the links via email or answer any questions you might have. And with that, Producer Susan, unless you have anything else, I'll sign off. We run out of time.
Yep.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. Enjoy this nice weather.
All right. Talk to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.